Hello everyone, good evening, happy holidays. I am so excited to be here presenting holiday Parol Stars. It's a traditional Filipino Christmas star. And I promise these do have lights in them. I'm going to show you in just a minute. Before I get too far ahead of myself, I want to remind you that we are giving away a $100 e-gift card. And all you have to do to be eligible for that is to like us and follow us on Facebook. And we're going to throw a prompt in the comment feed there, and go ahead and respond to that prompt as well. And hopefully that gets some good conversations started. I know I always really enjoy reading and seeing everyone's responses and learning and thinking of things I would never come to on my own that you all throw out there. So thank you. Let me pull a star over here. So this is our Parol Star. Now this one does not have lights in it. I've closed this one off entirely and put some little pom-poms on the end there, which makes it really fun. Almost feels like a little doll figure in a way. Let me grab this one to show you the lights. Now I wish we could turn off the lights in here and have everything sort of glow and be able to show you that, but it just doesn't really come through digitally. So you're gonna have to make one and you will see for yourself. I promise you, they are absolutely beautiful. And this is a project where there are a lot of moving parts and it gets a little bit complicated. I promise you, it really is simple. It just looks a little complicated. So while I'm holding this here, and you can see I've left the back open, so you can really see what's going on inside, I hope, with the structure. I find sometimes it helps to know where I'm going, and then all of the steps make more sense as they fall into place. But this is really, there are just some little fairy lights in there, battery operated, and it really is charming. And you can hang them. They can also rest, like I have these here. All right, let's get started. So I'm using basswood, and I have to look at my cheat sheet here. I am using 1/16 by 1/4, and these are 24 inches long, and they're going to come in a bundle of 24, which seems like a lot of basswood to order, but really it's not. You're going to need 10 strips of basswood for every star, and if you're going to make a really big star like this one over here, that one I actually did not cut the strips at all. So you're going to be able to make a few stars out of the materials that I've put in the material list. Be sure to check that out. It's there's a link at the top of the page, and that'll take you to a full material list and also some written instructions. Okay, so I'm going to start by bundling 2 strips together. And I'm using plasti bands here. They're nice, strong little rubber band type bands. They're a little stronger than rubber bands though, and stretchier. They're not going to snap on you. And you want that to be fairly tight. I don't know if you saw there, I forgot to mention it as I was doing it, but I really banded it so that I just couldn't get it around another time. So you wanted to do that for 4 sets, and that will leave you with 2 strips on their own left over. I'm going to take 2 sets here and open them up a little bit. I like to sort of tap them, make sure they're even. Make a W shape. W for Whitney. And go ahead and band them together. Again, make it nice and tight. I'm really gonna, all right. All right, now this is the part that looks a little confusing, but when you're holding it, it's really easy to do and it'll make sense, I promise. You're going to take your W, going to cross the bottom points, and going to thread your loose ends through. Okay, I can do that again, just in case anyone needs to see. So you cross and thread it through. And that's really the trickiest part. So all the hard stuff is over now. Take your one remaining stick, thread it and attach, line it up to the only two open ends that you have here, and band it nice and tight. And again. So now you should have something that resembles a star shape. Now you'll notice my star shape is a little bit wonky, and that's because all of these parts are actually still movable. You want to play around with it a little bit until it looks like the star that you want it to be. I have another one here. You're going to make two of these and lay them together, one resting on top of the other. They might not line up at first, but just play around with those ends. And guess what? We're gonna rubber band them on the ends. This time, however, you want it to be fairly loose. I only went around 3 times there, and it kind of almost looks like this could even fall off. But you want it to be loose so there's room for it to open up in the next step. And if it does actually fall off or is truly too loose, you can always give it another go around. And while I just put more rubber bands on, plasti bands rather, I want to remind everyone to like us, follow us, and comment on the question posed in the feed, and that will make you eligible for our $100 e-gift card giveaway. All right, so now I have a star, and we're going to open this star up. So maybe this is a bit of a better view. Can you see inside of there, Rick? All right. I have Rick here with me and Julie to help me out. So for sizing this, it's not really an exact science. What I like to do is open it up as much as I can until I feel like, oh no, I might snap it. I mark it with my finger, and then a pencil, and then I would cut it along that line. So not an exact science. I can't give you a real number or ratio even to where you would want to cut your inner, what would I call it? Your inner supports. But I think you'll be able to feel it when you're working with the basswood. And I'm going to insert them. You're going to cut five pieces for each inner point of the star. And I'm just placing them in here right now as placeholders to open it up. One more, and then when I get to the last one, I'm going to start gluing them in. And I like to have the other 4 there just because it holds the star open. Otherwise, you're fighting with it. It's gonna like pinch your fingers. You might end up snapping it. This way, it's nice and easy. And I'm using hot glue because I don't want you all to wait around while it's just drying. No one wants to watch glue dry, right? But really, there are lots of glues you could use. You could use a tacky glue. You could use a wood glue, Gorilla Glue. Oh gosh, Julie, did I leave anything out in the realm of glue?
Super glue would be overkill, right?
Oh yeah, super glue would be overkill. I always worry I'm gonna end up super gluing my fingers. It's inevitable. I always do end up with super glue on my fingers. And then I have to use sandpaper to get it off. Or deal with very scratchy fingers for a few weeks. So I think you get the idea here, how this works. I'm just going around, removing one of the inner supports. Put a little glue on the stick, on the top part, and a dot there, and insert it. Yeah.
I'm curious about the basswood strips.
Mm-hmm.
Is there another material you could think of that would also work, or maybe some that you definitely wouldn't recommend?
Yeah, Julie's wondering about the basswood strips and if there's another material that could be used or should be avoided. Definitely. I've seen some images of ones made with plastic straws, and I have to admit, I don't know how they made it work with the plastic straws. They're a little flimsy, and there just isn't that much support there. I know they're just so easy to bend at a 90-degree angle even. And once as you get that bend in the plastic, there's no going back, right? So I would avoid straws. But you could use reed used for basket weaving if you wanted to make very small Parol stars. I will, let me bring this back over here. So this little guy, this is actually the smallest star you can reasonably make using the 1/8 by 1/4 inch basswood strips. I always have to check the size on this when sizes get down to like 3/16 and 1/8. I'm gonna jumble those numbers if I don't look. And there is one that is actually thinner than this, so you could use that. But maybe I'll even show you quickly. So as you get smaller and smaller with your strips, it puts too much tension. And when you wanna open up that star, it's gonna snap. And it's really just too thick for the size. So this is as open as I could get this little star. So that's a good question. I don't know why you would want to go necessarily much smaller than that. Maybe covering up lights like this, making little lanterns that way. But that would be the way to do it, be with. Okay, so I have a star here, and I'm actually gonna switch this star out. Before I do, I should have mentioned before opening it up, I'm skipping around my steps here, but you can see if you forget to do it, it's okay. Sometimes we forget the order, right? You want to trace your star. So ideally, I would have done this before I put in the inner supports because then it's flat and it's just easier to trace. But you can see there's almost like a technique where you're rocking the star on its points. To get that traced. And as much as I would have loved to give you all a template for a prescribed star size, I've found because you essentially have this 5-point fulcrum, you're all going to end up with stars that are slightly different shapes and or sizes, and even where you band it on the ends, how close to the end it is, it's going to change your star. So you do need to make your own template for pretty much every star you make. After you get going, if you're like doing these in mass production, you'll get the hang of it pretty quickly, but that is something there. Another thing, we're going to need to make a template for the side of the star. We want to cover that in paper as well. And I'm using, let me turn this over. I always draw my templates on the back side because I don't want the pencil lines to show, but this is an absolutely beautiful handmade paper. I am using it's called Fiesta. It has all of these great fibers that are different colors. There's purple and green and blue, and the paper pulp itself is this creamy white. And that is what this star here was made from. And this is the paper that I specifically list on the bundle page, but I would really encourage you to check out our decorative papers, or if you're near a store, that's really going to be the best. You can go in, you can open up those paper drawers, you can touch all the paper, it's really great. What I just did there is I stepped back from my table so I could trace, and I'm not sure, Rick will give me a thumbs up if you can see this all the way back here. No, I'm gonna need to bring it forward. So I'm gonna hold this in air, but I'll show you. Obviously I wouldn't want to trace it this way, but I'm basically just lining up the edge where I have my support, and I'm lining that up to the edge of my paper, and I traced it over here, and it's really just a triangle shape, right? But like I said, with it being essentially on a fulcrum, all your triangles are going to be a little bit different. These stars are like snowflakes. And I like to give myself a little extra room when I cut this out, just in case one of the sides is a little bit bigger than the other, or, maybe I didn't trace it very well. Okay, so this is actually, I'm going to use this as a template to make all 5 of the sides. And to do that, lay it down. And this is really just because it's hard to fold the paper into that corner side of the star and trace it at the same time. And then flip it over on its axis and trace. Okay, so that gives me basically a diamond shape. And I already have these shapes cut out, so I'm gonna grab those. Just a moment. And I also have a star that I've already started to cover. I'm gonna put this structure away, and I will work on that one later. Okay, so here are my diamond shapes already cut, and I've started to cover the sides of the star. I have 2 sides left, so I'm going to walk through that with you all, because there are a few little tricks to it. First, you want to fold your diamond and grab my glue. And this is another area where I'm using good old Aleene's tacky glue, nice and thick, and sometimes at the bottom of the bottle. There we go. You just need a little bit. You don't want to go overkill on this. I feel like sometimes there's a misconception that the more glue you use, the better it will stick. It's not the case. Let that misconception go. It will actually over wet your paper, and it will take forever to dry when it doesn't need to. And it doesn't even create a stronger bond. It's going to be weaker. So that's my little rant against using too much glue. And I'm just using a brush to spread this out. And I also like to get the inside edge, that really thin edge. You don't need to get the bottom or back side though. Okay, so that is covered. I like to stand my star up, even when I'm just starting out with the first one. It's a little bit easier to see what you're doing. And just line it up. And you can see that one didn't line up. Maybe you can see on the front camera. Sometimes that'll happen, and you'll think to yourself that you must have cut your template wrong, or you sized it wrong, or all sorts of things. But really, usually, actually that might be the case here. Usually the case is that the axis is just folded a bit off, and you can change that, but you know, probably should have tested this before it went live. The other ones were just fine. There we go. There we go. Sometimes you just need to flip it around. Persistence. And play with how you line it up. But I'm glad that happened up here to me, because, you know, if it's happening to me, it's going to happen to you, and now you know. It's a totally normal thing to have happen. Sometimes you just have to line it up in a different way. Now I'm making little notch cuts along the inner edge here, and also up here where the band is. And that's just so I can get a really clean fold. And again, I really like to do this while it's standing up. And just pressing gently. You don't want to press too firmly, or you might crush your little star. You don't want that. But the tacky glue is pretty thick, so it's really going to want to grab onto that paper. I'm going to do one more side for you.
Whitney, do you ever have trouble with the glue sticking to the rubber bands?
Oh. Julie wants to know if I've ever had trouble with the glue sticking to the rubber bands. Do you mean like it doesn't stick to the rubber bands and you want it to?
Yes.
Yeah, it certainly can happen. Generally, it's not that, well, when you cover it all at the end, you're wanting to cover your rubber bands. So at that point, actually, now that we're talking about rubber bands, I see this one's pretty loose. I'm gonna give it another go around. There's enough other stuff going on up there that it doesn't really end up being a problem in the long run. There's other places for the paper and the glue to grab onto, and you know, it grabs onto the bands well enough for it to work. And that's a place where you're really just wanting to cover it. It's not structural necessarily. It's more a hiding element. Whereas I've found really, and it's the sort of thing, you'll be able to feel it when you're making your Parol Star. Adding the paper to the sides and gluing it down, now that is structural in the long run. It really helps stabilize the whole star. Obviously, these inner supports are what's keeping it open and not allowing its shape to change much. But even when you get those in, you can still find your star can move. You can shift those angles still. So you kind of want to keep an eye on it while you're working on it, that you haven't gone out of star shape, essentially. But adding the paper to the sides, that's what really sort of cements it in all together. So that was a good question. It made me think of that question. All right, so here's my star that I traced earlier. And just like with the sides, you might need to, where I had trouble orienting it the right way, you might need to flip it around a few times and really see like which way works the best. Am I gonna have lots of excess, or will it, like this one right here, the angles just don't line up right. So flip it around a few times, play around with it before you settle on which side you're going to be kneading. All right, so I like this side up, so I'm going to put that there. I'm even going to mark it on the top so I remember. So I want to talk about these funny little flaps for a moment. Sometimes I should have left one with it on, because they make this really lovely like arrowhead shape. So it could be really fun to leave them. I didn't make an example for you all that's like that, but that might have been fun to do. Maybe that's what I'll do with the next one. But I'm going to leave those on there. I'm not trimming them yet. I'm not tacking them down. They're open. And that's just because it's a little easier, I think, to do it all at once at the end. You certainly can go side by side, and every time you add a side piece of paper, then to immediately trim it and clean it up. But I find it just, it's easier to tackle it all at once. So I just put glue on the surface of my star. Whoops, missed one. And I'm spreading it out with a brush. You can also just use your finger to spread out the glue. It's just that I want it to have, I want the paper to have good contact with the glue, and I don't want glue oozing out one side of my star and another side being bare. Okay. So glad I marked my top. I almost moved it around again. And the blue was my top. Another fun trick with the plasti bands being different colors, that can help me know which point on the star I wanted to work with. Though I think I might have two blue ones on this one because that's, I think I moved my star around. There we go. Let's line up your edges. I like to open those little triangles up and just press down. And work from the center pentagon out towards the edge. And that way you don't get stuck with wrinkles in the middle, with nowhere to work them out to. Okay, so my star is now covered. I'm going to go over a few ways to close up these ends. You have some options. You could honestly leave them open, maybe even add a little bit more paper and have almost like the tassels I've made here. Now these were made by cutting strips of paper, notching it, and then coiling them into very tight coils. But you could actually leave these ends as they are if that's going to be your end game plan. Now if you want corners like this one here, where they're really sealed off and like super clean, right? This is what we're going to do. I'm going to stand up my star again, and at this point I like to assess, do I have any extra paper from the cover? And I do. So you have some options there. You can fold it down if it will stay folded down, or you can just run a pair of scissors over it to trim it up a bit. And I've been chatting here for a while. I do want to remind you, in our comments, let us know, respond to that question that we posted. And if you're new to us, go ahead and like and follow our Facebook page, and that will enter you into a chance to win a $100 e-gift card. And who doesn't want a $100 e-gift card this time of year? Can use that to buy some presents, make some presents, have a craft night with friends, make some Parol Stars. We actually have a, and I'm just folding over all these triangles here. I'm going to do another one while I'm talking. You can sort of watch what I'm doing with my hands here. But we have a whole series of holiday crafts and projects, holiday decor, things for gift giving, these really fun ideas that we've come up with for the season that we want to share with you. All right, so I see this one. This one needs a trim. So I'm going to trim that first. And to find any of the materials that I'm using, we do have a bundle page on our website where not only do I have a full material list, but we also have some step-by-step instructions. You may be, sometimes it's easier to retain this process through reading it And so we have that there, along with everything you need to make your own Parol Star. So you can see I'm just folding tabs over, really, with glue. And going back to Julie's question about the rubber bands really isn't a problem. It covered just fine. So I could keep doing the rest of these, but I think we get the idea. Yeah. And you can add pom-poms on the end. You can add tassels and all sorts of fun embellishments. I really suggest you look at, find some images of traditional Filipino Parol Stars. Different materials are used, and some of them get so extravagant and so large. And they're just really, really beautiful to see, and they're beautiful to see lit up. So I hope you had fun with this. We're going to post the winner in our comments, and enjoy that $100 e-gift card. Stay tuned, follow us, check out our other holiday videos. Thanks, everybody.